The first episode of HBO's first video game adaptation series is now available. So how far from the video game did The Last of Us stray? How does it compare to the video game, and is it any good standing on its own? If you like to hear my take on the pilot episode, then join me for this review video. The first episode, titled When You're Lost in the Darkness, starts in the year 2003, where we witness the outbreak of a global pandemic caused by a fungal virus, which is a mutated form of the cordyceps fungus. We are introduced to Joel, a contractor, and his daughter Sarah, as well as Joel's brother Tommy, who works with him. While those who are infected by the fungus, whose only intention is to basically infect everyone so that everything is connected, run amok in Joel's neighborhood, the three of them try to find their way out of a city. An endeavor that is not successful and, unfortunately, ends with the death of Joel's daughter. The story then jumps 20 years into the future, basically into the year 2023, which is not at all ominous. We find the United States being ruled by a totalitarian regime, which pretends to protect their citizens, but obviously is only interested in controlling them. While some try to fight this regime, like a rebel group called the Fireflies, others are just trying to make a living and to survive there, for instance working as smugglers. In this group we are reacquainted with the aged Joel, who conducts his business with his partner, a woman named Tess. Joel is still in contact with his brother Tommy, who lives in a different colony, or let's at least say outside their colony, because he also might just live in the wild. But since he has lost contact with him for several weeks now, he and Tess plan to go there to make sure nothing has happened to him. For that task, of course, they need a vehicle. But getting a car and also a working battery is kind of an impossibility under this regime. The car Joel was already able to organize, but the battery is a little bit more complicated. And when Tess is trying to pick it up, she is double-crossed by the guy selling the battery, who is planning to sell it somewhere else, and being afraid of the repercussions, was ready to kill Tess. However, before he can decide what to do, she is getting away. And a while later they find out that the new customer that was supposed to buy the battery was the leader of the local Firefly resistance group. But since the battery was broken anyway and wouldn't work, they had a big shootout where a lot of the Fireflies died, with the two head honchos being severely injured. This of course happened at the worst time possible, because the Fireflies were in the process of moving a young girl, the 14-year-old Ellie, who seems to be something very special in this world, to a safe place where other Firefly members were waiting for them. Since in their current state they cannot do that task, they are asking Joel and Tess to do it in their stead, promising them a working car if they are able to deliver the girl to the place where she had to go. Not knowing why the girl is so special, the two comply because they are in dire need of that vehicle. So the first task is to smuggle the girl out of the city limits, which actually worked pretty well, until they ran into a guard, who performs a virus, or I guess I should better say fungi test on her, which came up positive. As the incubation period is usually only a handful of days at max, and she was infected 3 weeks ago, that explains why she apparently is that valuable, because inside her there might be a cure. Well, full disclosure, I only played the first few hours of the game, so I can only compare it on a very basic level, but at least the introduction was still very fresh in my mind. And I have to say that they did a very good job in retelling the intro where we unfortunately see his little girl die. What in the game was just a few minutes, in the TV show it's half an hour, because they padded out her story a little bit to make the girl more familiar to us, so that it hurt even more when she died. And while I guess that for someone who doesn't know the game this came as a complete surprise and as a solid shock, I have to say that knowing what will happen made it even more impactful, because you are introduced to someone you know from the get-go will die. And the more familiar they try to make the girl to you, the more you dread the moment that you know will come. In this regard already the show had a very big impact and really did a great job emotionally, because the pain really hit deep and the tears were running left and right. In this first half hour you find really a lot of similarities to the game. Some of the dialogue is taken verbatim from the game, even the t-shirt that the girl is wearing is coming directly from the game. The only difference there is that in the game, on the back of a t-shirt it said 2012, while the TV show is playing in 2003, so that after the time jump we are landing in 2023 instead of 2033. Which again I think is quite ominous that they decided to let the TV show play in our here and now. That also of course means that we have less developed technology in the show, because in the game you have smartphones that are being used, and in the TV show you have those bulky old cell phones that could do nothing else than just actually function as a phone. I'm not familiar with the game enough to tell you if this difference in technology development has any plot implications along the way, but I guess we will find out. Everything that happened after the time jump, I don't remember that well from the game anymore, but a lot of stuff still felt familiar. The main difference, I guess, is that the storyline around Tommy being in danger is something that I didn't remember from the game. There they were just after some weapons instead of a battery that this double-crossing dealer was owing them. But there they also ran into the Firefly group and were tasked with bringing the girl to the outpost where the other Fireflies were waiting for her. Overall, it appears that they are trying to stick as much as they can to the original material, which shouldn't come as a surprise, as the creators of the game are also co-executive producing the show, writing the scripts, and even directed some of the episodes. But also try to bring in some new stuff so that everyone who knows the original has their moments of recognition, but also gets enough new stuff so that it does not become completely boring for them. I'm not sure if everyone is happy with that, but at least this helps with keeping things fresh. It also will be interesting to see if in these 9 episodes for the first season they are trying to bring over the whole game or just parts of it. Because there is a second game as well, that could be grounds for a second season. But I guess things will get a little bit clearer after a few episodes have passed. As was to be expected from an HBO show, the production values of course were very high, and there is no disappointment when it comes to special effects or to set designs. Although for now the special effects were concentrating on the first half hour, while the second half of a pilot could really dig into the set designs, showing us this post-apocalyptic world. Or should I just say apocalyptic, because the fungus is still active. The acting is solid throughout, and with Pedro Pascal as Joel, they have a real genre fan favorite in the lead, because everyone loves him in The Mandalorian, and also everyone loved him as Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones. And you can already see that his dynamic, his chemistry with Bella Ramsey, who plays Ellie, is also very interesting, and it will likely be very nice to see that develop over the course of a series. But thinking about Pedro being also in Game of Thrones, where Bella Ramsey also had a recurring role as Lyanna Mormont, the head of House Mormont of Bear Island, I was wondering if they have crossed paths there, and maybe they have such a good chemistry because they already are familiar with each other. Though their characters, as far as I can remember, never crossed paths. I have to admit that I did not recognize Anna Torv at first, who is playing Tess in this show. Because the first time we see her she already has a shiner and a swollen eye, so maybe that is the reason. But also, since I last saw her in Fringe is already 10 years ago. So it might be that in those 10 years she changed a little bit. But I think it was mostly the shiner. In any case, she also does a good job here acting wise. And these are the main characters we have met in this show so far. Of course there was also the head of the Fireflies, Marlene, and her second in command, but I'm not sure if we will see them again, and their role so far wasn't that big, but still solidly acted, so we will see. The biggest surprise so far for me was that the pilot is 80 minutes long. I was expecting an hour max, but I guess they thought, let's just dig into the prologue and flesh it out a little bit, so they ended up having that 30 minutes long, so that the rest of the episode is 50 minutes, which is the usual length of a TV show episode at HBO, on average. So the show is off to a good start. And I guess the main question we have to ask ourselves, and this is not a spoiler because I have not played the game till the end, is if there really is a cure, and if Ellie is holding it within her blood. Because at the very beginning we see 2 scientists at a talk show talking about a possible outbreak of a mutated fungus. And there the specialist was saying that there actually cannot be any cure due to the nature of how a fungus is functioning. So that might be interesting to see, but I guess also that the solution will not be served up in the first season. And it is also the big question how many seasons there will be. Like I said before, I suspect 2 if they stick to 1 season per game, but maybe they try to flesh it out a little bit more and stretch it, or maybe they are coming up with some new material after the end of a second story arc, because as we know from Game of Thrones, not having all the original material does not stop you from continuing a TV show, for better or worse. With that being said, let's get into the rating, but before we do so, let me ask you to like and share this video if you enjoyed it so far, and if you are not a subscriber yet, maybe consider to change that. By also hitting the notification bell, you will get a heads up for most of my new videos. Now for the rating. As I said before, the acting and the set designs, the production values in general, were of course very high again, so everything fine here. As I have a soft spot for Pedro Pascal, that of course is also a very nice plus point. I am not 100% sure yet what it means for the show that they opted to make him and Tess a little bit softer than in the game, because there they were just killing people without regard left and right. Here they are also hardened, but not as free of scruples as they are in the game. I assume this is meant to make him more approachable from the very start, so that we are buying in quicker into the bond that he will undoubtedly build with the young girl that he is meant to protect. Of course, there was also a lot of exposition work, so I'm a little bit hesitant in saying it was excellent, but there were some scenes, especially in the very beginning, that were very impactful and emotional, so at least I would say going with an 8 out of 10 points, saying it was a great one, where most things were done very well, is fair, with the hope that future episodes will raise the stakes and the score, and not lead us into the other direction. What do you think about this adaptation? Have you played the game as well, and how do you feel does it compare to the original? And if you have not played the game, did you enjoy the show nevertheless? Or even more? Well, I guess that last one you cannot answer, but I guess you know what I mean. In any case, whatever you want to share, let me know in the comments. So much for now, see you next time, and thanks for watching! With the hope that future episodes will raise the stakes and the score, and not the other way around. And not lead us into the other direction.